Again, g'day from Australia. Joy to be with you today and to share a little bit of my experience for a minute or two. So this is about joy and peace, I suppose, in a situation where you're feeling pressured or you're feeling inadequate and you're required to do something that's actually above your pay grade. And that happens to me a lot. And so I just want to share with you an experience that I had that taught me the amazing presence of the Lord and his peace in a time like that. So the place that I find myself in often requires of me that I sit, talk or communicate with people that are of some significance. We all are, but sometimes it might be presidents or kings or queens, and I'm quite out of my depth. I'm just an Aussie kid. And I found myself in these places on a number of occasions, and the intimidation can often cause us to self-sabotage, and we can not own the space that the Lord has given to us. And I was in that situation and speaking with a very significant woman, and as I spoke with her, I realized that her needs were no less, despite her position, her needs for the Lord and for peace and for joy were no less than any one of us. And so I gained a little bit of confidence as we began to speak together. And I was reminded from the word, and a lot of peace came from this, that we are in his presence, and his presence trumps all the heavy duty, kings and queens and presidents and prime ministers and God knows what not. His presence trumps all of that. And so as I began to talk, the Lord brought before me a scripture that says, from Psalm 23, you prepare a table, because I was at the table with her, before me in the presence of my enemies. Not that she was an enemy. She wasn't the enemy. My own intimidation and insecurity was the enemy. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemy, and you anoint my head with oil, and my cup runneth over or runs over. And I began to understand this as we had meals together, that this queen would, when the meal was concluded, there was a sign, and the sign was she would take her serviette or her napkin, whatever you call it, off her lap, and she would put it across her plate, and that was the sign that this is concluded. And so these upper class kind of people have different signs and signals that you learn to communicate, that you learn to put into your bank of experience to see and be able to read the room well. And so in the midst of this, I learned something that I'll pass on to you, because I was able to pass it on to her as well. And the thing was that in the days when King David wrote that psalm, he was alluding to a table that has been prepared for him. And in those days, the kings or the chief of the soldiers or the chief of the military, if you were invited to their table, they would let you know how welcome you were and how long you should stay by the amount of wine in the cup. And so if you were no longer welcome, if you weren't required to be there much longer, the waiter would cease to pour the wine. And so the more empty your cup became, the more was the hint, you should get out of here, because you're not you're done, time limit, use by date, off you go. But David's saying, in the presence of the Lord, he found that his cup just wasn't half full. It wasn't 3/4 full. It wasn't even just full. But in the presence of this King Jesus, his cup actually overflowed. It poured out, it spilt over because of the longing of the king for David to stay in his presence was measured by the amount of wine in the cup. And I found myself in a situation where I learnt how to enjoy and be at peace, and also to share with others that, again, regardless of our intimidation or our lack of status, if you like, that the Lord just keeps on pouring into us the joy and the peace that we have at any time, even in the presence of our own enemies, which are usually within. Thank you. You have a good day.